Let's be honest, learning a new language isn't so easy. It requires time, effort, and many people fall at learning it. However, it isn't as difficult as you think either if you implement the right method and mindset. I'm 18 years old and I've been learning foreign languages seriously for about 3 or 4 years, I'm not that sure. And as time goes by, I decided to replace a couple of methods. They actually were good, but I just decided, not to waste too much time on unnecessary things and just to focus on what's truly important. So, like the video, share, subscribe, and let me show you the methods. So, my first method is to feel the language. Okay, it could sound a bit strange, a bit crazy, but trust me, it's an essential part if you truly want to become a speaker of the language. Also, it's essential to answer a couple of questions. One of them are, why I learn this? What's the interesting thing there? Why I want this language to become a part of me? Diving into the language creates a connection between your mind and your target language, which could facilitate the learning process, because it could make your brain to grasp better to grasp and create a desire to learn the language. Because if you don't have any desire, so it could be really difficult, really much difficult for you and to your mind to accept the information, which is essential if you want to learn seriously a language. Now, I'm going to give you an example with 3 languages which I'm learning at the moment: Chinese, Hindi and German, which are one of my worst languages to be honest, but okay. So, let's start with Chinese. As you know, China has got a huge history dating back from so many centuries, and I was pretty curious about its mysterious characters, its ancient history and so forth. That was drawing my attention over the years, and since I was a kid, I was watching so many movies, animated movies and so forth, and Chinese language little by little was becoming a part of me. So now, when I recently started learning the language, I can't even realize how much time do I waste in writing characters because I just don't want to stop. I wanted it so much in the past, so right now I've got the opportunity to do that. So it was really interesting, and I've got this connection. Kind of the same thing happens with Hindi. It's such a traditional and old language, and the most important stuff is that very few people can speak it in the Western world, including Europe. Except that its writing system is pretty beautiful, maybe one of the most beautiful systems I have seen. And about German, I'm a pretty big lover and fan of German cars and its machines, its innovation and so forth. So each high quality magazine, car, truck, supermarket and so forth, combined with my intention to learn German, I think it's equal to success in learning German. Maybe now you'd say, I spend so much money in order to learn the language as fast as I can and still can't feel it. I'm learning the language at school and I can't feel the language. I'd clarify that you can't dive into the language and create the connection you need between your mind and the language by spending so much money, actually by being forced to spend so much money in online lessons or to being forced to learn it at school without any zest to do that. However, I'd like to create another video about this topic. My next method is positive thinking. So my opinion about this method is that our brain is coded, is programmed in such a way that it could adapt to any thought. For instance, what if you think that language learning is easy? Our mind would adapt to the easier part of the language and will actually try its best to find and to search for everything which is easy. By creating that, it would create an easier atmosphere for us in order to adapt better to the language. However, what if we say that language learning is difficult? So the answer is simple. Our mind would adapt to the difficult part of the language and we will search for each thing that is difficult actually. So for that reason, if you think that language learning is difficult, so actually it would be difficult because your mind will search for every difficult part and would neglect the easier parts. I consider Greek as a very, very beautiful language, so for that reason this is one of my favorite languages which I'm learning. So I learn with a really big desire, words, sentences, I read posts, and I watch a lot of videos on Greek. So I try my best in order to do that, so my mind sees that and I send my thoughts to my mind and it actually thinks, it's easy, you really really like that, so I'm going to be searching for the easiest part in order to learn this language. Except that its grammar is kind of similar to my language, if we exclude of course the cases, some grammatical rules and so forth. So the Greek grammar follows the same pattern as the Bulgarian grammar, the same structure. So this is also a positive impact of my learning of the language actually. However, unlike the beauty of the mellifluous Greek language, German for me is a bit tricky. Its words are very long. It follows a completely different grammar structure. There are so many rules, and also the words are kind of very similar each other. For instance, wütend, Wut, waren, überwinden, war, wurde, wünschen, and so forth. What does my mind think about German language? So it has adopted insight in my mind that German language is such a confusing, complicated, tricky, difficult, and you name it. There are so many rules with very difficult structure. Its words are very long and also very similar, so my mind couldn't adapt to those words and couldn't memorize them and so forth. However, sometimes when I'm very motivated to learn that language, so I force my mind to focus on the positive thing, on the positive aspects, by talking to myself about topics that are very interesting for me and so forth, and actually it works. So when you force your mind to think positively and to search the positive part throughout the learning, so I think it could work out. But you shouldn't overestimate this process, because I can tell you that I have overestimated it and now I really regret it. So I could mention it a bit later in the video. Third method, talking to yourself. So I guess that many people would think that if they talk to themselves, they're very crazy, they have got an illness, I don't know. This, our society just has got these brilliant ideas about people, about people's behavior and so forth, but this is a whole different topic. Trying to talk to yourself is very essential if you want to create a solid level of your target language. So if you talk to yourself without any preparation, for instance, I think you can create a very big understanding of the language, and you can use to, which is the most important thing, you can use the language with people. So I can say that by experience. Before getting the opportunity to talk to people in Greek, I was constantly talking to myself, describing topics, videos, pictures and so forth. I was doing that 100% by myself. So when I got this opportunity, I don't know, but it isn't so fluent, but it helps me a lot. I was talking with confidence, and for that reason so many people in Greece, for instance, they said me that they speak very, very well Greek. I'm learning 95% by myself, and each accent that I'm trying to show you through social media or here through YouTube, I actually trying to master it. Even though I haven't mastered it yet, I've got a lot of work, especially in English, Italian, Greek and other languages, but I try my best, and I think I've got a good accent in many languages, only by conversing with myself. Even by standing in front of the camera, or by recording your voice or your face and so forth while you speak, it's an excellent exercise if you want to consolidate your skills and to create confidence. Next method, writing. I admit that this is my favorite method by far, because I really like to write text, to write sentences, exercises, and to write down the new words. I don't know, but I think that if it's possible, I could create an entire book in the language which I'm learning right now to know. It could be really delightful and interesting process for me. But actually I watch a bunch of videos, and after that I write down the new words, and then I just try to describe the topic in my notebook, for instance, by writing text, exercises with the new words from the video that I've just watched, let's say, and so many other stuff. But if you're not a big fan of writing, I couldn't advise you to write down each word. I actually don't write each new word, to be honest, because I write the words that are very important for me, and they actually, with them I could create communication with people. So I don't advise you to write down each word that you face, because this is going to waste a huge amount of time for you. Likewise, I'd rather recommend you to write down phrases instead of each word, because actually you can put the new words in a phrase, and this way you could learn a new grammar rule, a new phrase, and actually the new word itself. So I think for me this is the more efficient approach if you want to learn a bunch of words, for instance, in a day. And then you can, for instance, after a couple of days, you can review that. You can come again to the list of your phrases, and you could actually review the new word, and by reading the phrase and so forth, I think that could be really good approach. I write down each word because I'm a crazy person about words. I'm like a monster who is very hungry and really loves to write down each word, I don't know. And last thing about this method is that it's essential to be about your interest, to listen, to write, and everything to be about your interest, at least at the beginning. For instance, if you're a footballer, you're going to be interested in football. If you are, for instance, a traveler, you're going to be interested in countries and traveling, not in a scientific complicated combinations or history events and so forth. And the last method, but it's a very important method, is to be realist. Please, don't think that you learn a language having nothing to do with the languages you know fluently in just 1, 2, 3 or 4 months without any preparation or practice, like so many hyper polyglots on YouTube, to be honest. I want to underline that in this channel I'm not going to criticize anybody personally, so don't think that I'm doing it right now by saying hyper polyglot. I just want to warn you about the content on YouTube, because there is so many content on YouTube related to language learning, and yeah, I do agree, there are a lot of good legitimate polyglots, and I really would recommend and watch them, but at the same time it's full of fraud, so for that reason you've got to be cautious about that. So let's go back to the main topic. I'd like to include one more time Chinese language. So I've been learning Chinese for 5 or 6 months, and I think my level is still HSK2 or HSK1, I don't know. I don't think I've mastered HSK1 yet, but I think I could take a test in order to master it. But yeah, that's what I mean, is that I haven't done with even the basic levels in 6 months of learning the language. So for that reason, I can tell you that it isn't so easy as you think, but at the same time, if you've got an approach, you can do that, but you've got to be realist about many stuff that could hinder you if you aren't prepared. Also, to point out that grammar is very important here, because without grammar you couldn't actually got the structure of the language, you couldn't figure out the language. You know that you couldn't design a house from inside without the construction, so the same thing happens with language learning. So you couldn't figure out a language, like I said, without the grammar, because you know the grammar serves as the construction of the language. And as I mentioned earlier, you shouldn't overestimate the easiness of the language, of whatever language you're learning, because trust me, that would play you a very bad joke. I did exactly the same with Russian before starting learning it, and guess what? Yeah, I stumbled with both legs. I was literally impatient to start learning Russian because I was thinking that that's gonna be the easiest language by far, because it's very similar to Bulgarian, and also by knowing the fact that so many Bulgarians have learned it at school. So yeah, that triggered me to think this way, but it was a very incorrect approach, because like I said, I just couldn't realize how difficult it could be. Except that I dare say that its grammar is maybe the most difficult grammar I have ever faced by far in all of my experience of learning languages, because its grammar contains 6 cases, so all of those 6 cases has its own system. I don't know how can I explain that, but it's very complicated for me. So for that reason, I don't have to underestimate that neither you should do that, because it could be very incorrect approach. So to generalize briefly, language learning isn't an easy process. You're going to commit a lot of errors, you're going to misunderstand a lot, you're going to stumble a lot, but the most important thing is to don't give up and to carry on doing that, because language learning is very rewarding process, and for that reason, if you don't stop, you're going to succeed. But the most important thing, don't underestimate the language or overestimating your abilities. So that's all for today. I hope that I managed to share a part of my methods, and these methods to help you a lot with your language learning process. And yeah, if you've got some struggles, or you've got setbacks, just carry on. Don't give up. This is my advice for you. Thank you so much for staying here until the end of the video. So if you like it, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with more people. That helps me a lot. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.